What's up, everybody? John Calipari issues a farewell to Big Blue Nation, and we are one step closer to him taking over at Arkansas. We'll talk all about it. Locked On SEC starts right now.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And what's up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On SEC. It's great to have you guys along on today's episode. We'll be talking a lot about the Kentucky side. We will talk about Calipari bidding farewell to Big Blue Nation, but we're going to talk the Arkansas side of things. Our buddy Tye Richardson is going to join us, and we'll find out just how excited fans are there in Fayetteville. But thank you guys for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Shout out to everydayers. I'm Chris Gordy. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. And this episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use our code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Well, get you guys caught up. First things first, John Calipari officially putting out a video message to Kentucky fans yesterday and, bidding farewell to Big Blue Nation. And it became real because, look, we had all these reports for about 48 hours of, oh, he hasn't told Mitch Barnhart yet. He hasn't notified him that he's going to go elsewhere. And so we did see Calipari put out the video, and he's officially stepping away from Kentucky after 15 seasons with the program. And the video posted to social media. He said it's time to step away completely from the program. He also mentioned another coaching opportunity, presumably, wink, wink, to become the next head coach at Arkansas. But he said the last few weeks, we have come to realize this program probably needs to hear another voice. And those words right there resonate with Big Blue Nation, that this is real. This is happening. For Matt Norlander, he said Calipari did meet with two Kentucky administrators at his house on a Monday, and said one source briefed on those conversations said the messaging from Kentucky's end was clear and that there was no salvaging matters if ever there was a desire to try to do that. And Dick Gabriel, a longtime Kentucky broadcaster, reported Calipari asked Kentucky to counter the offer from Arkansas, and Kentucky said no. Now, Tom Mars, Cal's lawyer, refuted that report later in the day, saying that is not how it went, and I got the text messages to prove it. But here was a little bit of John Calipari in his farewell video that he bid to the Kentucky faithful.
Since our season ended, Ellen and I have spent a lot of time thinking about our time here at Kentucky, what it means to us, the friends we've made on that court, regional championships, conference championships, Final Fours, the national title in 2012. It's been a beautiful time for us. This is a dream job. It was my dream job. Anybody in our profession looks at the University of Kentucky in basketball and said, that is the bluest of blue. The last few weeks, we've come to realize that this program probably needs to hear another voice, that the university as a whole has to have another voice giving guidance about this program that they hear. And the fans need to hear another voice. We've loved it here, but we think it's time for us to step away and step away completely from the program. There have been opportunities that have been presented to us, and we're discussing them as a family.
So there was Cal saying the slick line. There have been other opportunities. We're discussing them as a family. That deal with Arkansas is going to go through very quickly. But just a few more notes here. John Calipari's former players responding on his video leaving Kentucky, and everybody from John Wall to Brandon Knight to Carl Towns to Marcus Cousins. I mean, you name it, every one of those guys saying, man, love Cal. Always love for you, coach. Best of luck to you. Living legend, all love, all that kind of stuff. And so cool to see that stuff. And Calipari will be missed, certainly, as Kentucky turns the page into a new era. Now, Kentucky Athletic Director Mitch Barnhart put out a statement on social media, said, "We are appreciative of John Calipari leading our program for the last 15 years, adding to the legacy of championship success at Kentucky. We are grateful to John for his many contributions to the university and our state on and off the court." And of course, the coaching search is going to be underway. And Mitch Barnhart is tasked with finding that next head coach. He said, "We are working diligently to hire a proven, highly dedicated coach who embraces the importance of this program to our fans and the state of Kentucky." So the search is underway. I think they're going to move pretty quick with this. And look, news has already started to move. First domino to fall, Rob Dillingham has officially declared for the NBA draft. He did that yesterday. Dillingham is projected to be a top 10 pick. A lot of the mock drafts have him going 8, 9, 10, somewhere in that area. The other one we're going to wait to see is Reed Sheppard. Now, obviously, he's a legacy at Kentucky, and his dad played there, and he got his fair share of NIL deals. He could get a ton of NIL deals if he decides to come back to Kentucky, but some of the mock drafts have him going top 5, 5 or 6, and you just feel like if he's going to do that, he's got to go. So we'll see what happens there. But a report surfaced Tuesday evening that Scott Drew has been offered the job at Kentucky. Didn't see any other people reporting that, but again, just putting that out there that was a report. And Scott Drew is the guy who I've kind of been saying the last day or so that I think is the most doable for Kentucky, because as we heard, Dan Hurley, Nate Oates, Jay Wright, all of them kind of saying thanks, but no thanks, happy with what I'm doing. Jay Wright doing TV. Nate Oates locked in at Bama, just went to the Final Four. And of course, Dan Hurley just winning back-to-back championships at UConn. I think he's just doing fine. And of course, he pinned his wife saying she doesn't want to move again. So there's that. So other names on the list, obviously Billy Donovan's name still on there, the coach from a decade ago winning back-to-back titles at Florida and been doing his thing in the NBA. He may want to make the jump back to college. Of course, he was an assistant under Patino back in the day at Kentucky. Xavier coach Sean Miller is a name, BYU coach Mark Pope. So these are all names that have popped up. But again, if you believe it, a report surfacing that Scott Drew at Baylor likely, getting an offer or at least vetting, getting a call saying, "Hey, do you want to entertain this idea and come to Kentucky?" And for Scott Drew, again, a guy who has been at Baylor for a long time, but has achieved the ultimate goal, won a national championship there at Baylor a couple years ago, but been there since 2003, was at Valpo for a year and then jumped to Baylor. And my gosh, 446 wins in his time at Baylor and has had a great run of success. I mean, they are making deep tournament runs every year at Baylor. But what do you do with the resources of a Kentucky where you have NIL money, where you have every recruiting tool you could use, and just the prestige of a blue blood? And it's no offense against Baylor, but that is intriguing for a guy like Scott Drew. So we'll see what happens there, but Scott Drew, certainly a name to keep an eye on there in the Kentucky search. As we transition, we're going to bring in our guy Tye Richardson here in just a second to talk about the Arkansas fallout. What's the feeling on their fans? Brandon Marcello coming out Tuesday evening saying Arkansas has scheduled a Board of Trustees meeting at 9 a.m. Wednesday, and it is expected that John Calipari's contract will be approved at that time. So this thing's going to start moving. I'm sure we'll have a press conference very soon, and already images surfacing at Bud Walton Arena of Cal's face on the wall. So we'll get to all that here in just a second. Thank you guys for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Coming up next, we're going to talk with Tye Richardson right after this. But first, I want to remind you guys this episode presented to you by our friends at FanDuel. It is playoff time in the NBA and the NHL, and baseball is in full swing. FanDuel is your place to bet on every game in all the sports. Right now, new customers, if you've never signed up before and you're checking them out for the first time, you can get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That is $150. Win or lose, you bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks. And it's all done on an app that is safe, secure, and super easy to use. What are you waiting for? How do you get this great offer? You just want to go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel.com/lockedon. You want to make sure you put that locked on in there. That is what's going to get you that special offer, and you can make your first bet an automatic win. One more time, new customers, never signed up with FanDuel before. Go there to FanDuel.com/lockedon, get signed up, and get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed, win or lose, when you make your first bet. It is FanDuel. They are America's #1 sportsbook. Go check them out today and get signed up. We're along here, Locked On SEC, and super excited to welcome in our buddy. He is Tye Richardson. You can follow him on Twitter at Tye Sports Radio. And as he joins us, he is wearing his hog hat. He is in hog heaven. Tye Richardson of the Morning Rush at hitthatline.com in Fayetteville. He's got the jacket and everything to prove it. Tye, welcome in, man. What has the last 72 or so hours been like for you with all this craziness of John Calipari and Arkansas?
It's definitely one.
There we go.
Right, we're good.
Sorry, Tye. For some reason, you're muted.
You're good.
Right,
I don't know if it was a dream come true per se, but definitely unimaginable. Like, there was no Arkansas fan in any realm of possibility that thought that John Calipari was going to be Arkansas's next head basketball coach, especially after Musselman left. We were kicking around the idea earlier last week about 15, 20 jobs out there that guys just wouldn't leave. Cal, Bill Self, others. And sure enough, John Calipari, and barring a change, is going to be announced as Arkansas's head basketball coach, which is just wild to think about, Gordy. It's just insane, and it's going to be a lot of fun starting in 2024, 2025.
Let's rewind before we get full into the Cal stuff. How did the Musselman stuff go down? Because the last few years, man, it seemed like it was a match made in heaven. Everybody seemed happy with Muss. He was killing it in on the recruiting trail, in the transfer portal, all these Sweet 16 runs and all this. And then this year, things didn't go well, but you normally don't pull the plug on a guy or turn the page after one bad year. So what happened with Muss this past year where everything kind of went sideways?
Well, to be clear, I mean, Eric Musselman turned the page on Arkansas. Arkansas fans didn't turn the page on him. There's a lot of national college basketball pundits out there that are saying Arkansas fans turned on Muss. That's not the case, Gordy, at all. They turned on him once they found out that he was interviewing for a much lesser college basketball job. If Eric Musselman was a football coach, had success, and then was interviewing the USC football job, I think Arkansas fans would kind of understand to a certain degree. That job is light years away from what happens in the confines of Donald W. Rollins Razorback Stadium. But it's basketball. There's no USC basketball history, to be frank. And I think that's why people got really frustrated and fed up, is that aspect. He's hard to work for. He wears on people. I mean, I think Eric's a great coach. I'm very happy that he decided to come to Fayetteville, spending 4 years in Nevada and then 5 years in Fayetteville. Didn't work out this year. Him and the rest of the coaches didn't evaluate great, and the players didn't translate. Like, they didn't exactly buy into his coaching, his teachings, which is not easy to abide by sometimes. And it was a perfect storm of misevaluations and the players not buying in until it was too late, which led to Arkansas having its first losing season under Muss, and led to him deciding, it's probably better if I try and go out west. And his mom's in San Diego. He's not originally from California, but that's what I think he describes as his home. So I don't blame him for wanting to go out there, but it was not because it was a better job situation. It's not even close in comparison in basketball.
I find it so hard to have a serious conversation with you with this hat on, but I love it. It's absolutely ridiculous. So let's get into it. The Tyson chicken family. Help me out here. From what I understand, the Walton family has been very involved with donations and everything with the University of Arkansas. Tyson family, maybe not so much recently, and this was kind of a deal where he himself was saying, Cal, whatever you need, let's make it happen. Let's get you to Arkansas. Is that kind of how things have transpired here?
John Tyson has been friends with John Calipari for a number of years, and evidently they've had this conversation before, according to reports. And I can't remember if it was an ESPN article or a Stadium article. Maybe it was a Field of 68 that they were playing golf and discussing this. And Cal was looked at by Frank Broyles and, in fact, offered the job, I think, in 2007, if I remember correctly. There's been other times that Cal has been, I think, approached or just questioned about it. And you're showing that. I love how you're showing the graphic right now that's currently up in Bud Walton Arena of John Calipari in a red suit, which I never thought I'd see the day. But that's what kind of pushed it. Tyson, this is not Tyson Chicken money. This is John Tyson's money that, of course, he profited from Tyson Chicken. But he's investing in his friend and really making a push, not just from a salary standpoint, at least our vantage point from the outside looking in, but from NIL too. There was a report from Pro Football Talk that Jerry Jones is involved. I would guess some other marquee boosters involved. Maybe the Hunts are involved. I don't know. People underestimate this, and I don't know if this is still the case, but at one point, the most millionaires per capita were in Northwest Arkansas. And I know that you've got a lot of listeners in Louisiana, a lot of across SEC country, and Arkansas is one of the poorer states of the union, but there's still money here. And when you push money to the brink, or money wants to do something, not just in Fayetteville, but across the state, every once in a while it can happen. And I think John Tyson just said, enough's enough. Let's go get a national championship. Don't know if it'll lead to that, but he's gonna make sure money's not the issue with John Calipari and the staff.
So again, trying to work through the timeline here a little bit. We read there was a report that said they were having talks as early as February, and kind of, hey, this could happen. Hunter Yurachek goes on a podcast, I guess, what was that, a week or two ago, and was kind of non-committal when it came to Muss. He was like, well, he's our coach right now. How much was this Hunter going, knowing this could be in the works, and him going, hey, Eric, no, don't leave. Would hate for you to leave, but like, if he wants to walk, let Muss go.
Well, at the time, it looked like that was a horrendous mistake by an athletics director that didn't know what he's doing. When you look back at it, I think it's pretty calculated on his part. Now, I never understand the particulars and the inner workings of everything and every detail that an athletic director decides on, but that's what a lot of people are speculating on after the fact. You don't have all the information, then you seem to get more of the information, or at least more of the perspective, and your opinion might change a little bit. But I think Hunter Yurachek has known that Eric Musselman is probably going to move on. Whether it was this season, next season, it was a relatively short term before he would jump ship from Fayetteville, and he had to plan. And I'll give him credit because there was a lot of people that expected Chris Beard to be named head coach last week, including myself. It didn't happen. You heard some other names over the weekend, and I don't know if those were just ploys to get people off the scent of what was going on behind the scenes with John Calipari. It worked. And I keep saying it worked. I'm assuming this is going to happen. It's reported right now, but we're just waiting on it.
Yeah, the photoshops of Cal wearing a red suit at Bud Walton Arena are they're in trouble if this isn't going to happen. But
Yeah.
It's as everything with sports, it's not done until it's done. But it is interesting, though. I mean, we were talking a week ago about the possibility of Chris Beard or Jerome Tang and Will Wade. Like, there's no doubt this is clear cut the best hire that Arkansas could have made, right?
No, I don't think there's any question, Gordy. I think that sometimes you can test hires and you push back. And it hasn't. We took some calls and texts the last 2 days that we're pushing back on Calipari. I don't blame him. Guys, one NCAA tournament in 5 years. Muss has 8. 8 compared to 1. So there's a little bit of a difference there. But the hope is that this guy comes in, lights a fire in his ass, and wants to prove everyone wearing blue. It's like, you guys didn't want me anymore? Okay. Watch this, and then he goes off. Now, is he going to go on an NCAA tournament run like we saw with him, like 4 Final Fours in the first 6 years in Kentucky? No, but 1 would be acceptable. Heck, if he could even get to 2, that would be insane for Arkansas fans. They hadn't been back since 95, so and they were close under Muss, went to 2 Elite Eights, had another good run in Sweet 16, but Cal could do something that hasn't been done since the Nolan days in the mid-90s at Arkansas.
And the other thing, too, is getting guys, to the NBA. And I guess you've had a little groundswell here in recent years with, Jalen Williams, Anthony Black, Nick Smith, but, Moses Moody, Bobby Portis. That's the one thing. You look around the damn league, Tye, and almost every team has a former Kentucky grad that played for Cal. Like, they're just all over the place. So if anything, he's going to – and nothing against Muss. He did great in recruiting, but Cal can do better if he's at his A game.
Yeah, and I wonder – for John Calipari, you are going to a place that's not like far and away lesser, but I mean, Arkansas is a lesser job than Kentucky. That's coming from an Arkansas grad who's currently donning a Razorback hawk hat right now. So How he goes about that, I think Cal's larger than life, where wherever he goes, recruits follow, transfers, high school kids, even players like, say, Caleb Battle, who entered the portal, might have second thoughts if Cal wants him back in school. He saw him firsthand twice, so he would have a pretty good scouting report on what Caleb could do. I think Cal has an opportunity here to reinvent himself on the latter stage of his career.
Hang tight, Tye, because coming up next, I do want to get the perspective of what a lot of Arkansas fans are saying, and then also some of the rumors about what he is going to be handed the keys to. So we'll talk about that here in just a second more with Tye Richardson right after this. But first, I want to remind you guys this episode is presented to you by our friends over at the Gametime app. Look, Gametime is now an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Gametime app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. They got killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee. Gametime is going to take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. And I tell you guys all the time, I've used them before. I used them for college, used them for an NFL game this past year. Bought tickets the day of the game, did the all-in prices. The price was what they showed you, and the view from the seat was exactly the view. That's the best part. If you're worried about a column being in the way or whatever, oh, is this going to be close enough to the field? The views from the seat option is the best one on Gametime, and it will show you exactly what it is. They also offer, like we said, the all-in prices that you toggle the feature on the app. It shows the total upfront with no surprise fees at checkout. And again, with the seat view, get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. Go take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app today, create an account, and use our code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem our code LOCKEDONCollege, get $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. And we dive back into it with our buddy Tye Richardson. And Tye, let everybody know where they can find your stuff, because I know you guys have the website, hitthatline.com. You've been hosting the Morning Rush there for some time in Fayetteville, and easiest place to find you, hitthatline.com?
Yeah, we got a Hit That Line Now app for the Arkansas fans, and if you're just an SEC football fan, we talk a lot of SEC football and on X at Tye Sports Radio. I finally said it right. I'm so used to saying Twitter, but and hopefully another SEC stadiums this fall. Gordev's kind of bummed. Like, we were in Baton Rouge last year drinking at Ivar's, and won't get to go to Baton Rouge this year until maybe a basketball or a baseball series.
Yeah, it's weird. And the SEC schedule we have this year, it's going to be the same for 2025. We just swap home and away. And it's going to take a lot getting used to. Tye, help us catch up, because you're doing your show every day. You're talking to the fans. What's been the overall reaction? You mentioned some fans maybe a little hesitant. Okay, 65 years old, but seems like for the most part, Arkansas fans are pretty ecstatic.
Yeah, Gordy, I would say that's like 95.5, and I don't blame the 5%. I mean, I referenced his NCAA tournament win, not wins, win in the last 5 years. But, I mean, he's walking into a situation, as you show this beautiful picture, Bud Walton Arena, following an Arkansas win. I don't know if that was Duke or if it was Auburn, but, I mean, this is incredible. He's actually at Duke. He's actually getting to go to a venue now where his team, his fans will jump up and down and stand up after his team makes a play, instead of the quietest 24,000 people in college basketball, which is Rupp Arena. I mean, maybe the most overrated venue in the sport. Players are great. Cal's been great there. Pitino was great. I guess Rupp wasn't there for Rupp Arena, but I mean, that's not a basketball venue. It's a mall. It's a freaking mall. So he's actually getting to go to a basketball atmosphere, which is awesome for him. And he knows what Bud Walton can do. He's had plenty of teams that have walked in that are better. So Cal's walking into a good situation, and fans, I would say maybe even above 95% are positive that he's going to do something in Arkansas. I guess the question is, if you're paying him, if the numbers come out and they're correct, that's being reported, and he's getting paid over $8 million. I mean, what do you expect? Are you expecting a national championship? Are you expecting a Final Four? I mean, if he's getting paid to that type of money, I mean, I think you got to take him to at least one Final Four in his maybe 4 or 5 years at Arkansas before he hangs it up and calls it quits.
It is, and let me speak firsthand to Rupp Arena. It is an electric environment. It is very nice. I've been there a handful of times, but I will say it's what we've seen in a lot of stadiums. The haves and the have-nots. The haves are the ones with money sitting lower bowl, and it's a lot of gray hairs. There's a lot of old people, old money, and they clap a little bit. But it's like the raucous students, they're all in the upper deck, and they're the ones screaming their heads off and lose their heads. So to your point, very different from Bud Walton Arena, very different from a lot of SEC arenas. But, if you got the money and you're rich and you got the bourbon money and all that, you're sitting lower bowl, but you're not making a ton of noise.
Yeah, I would say that there's a couple of, Bud Walton's up there. Bruce Pearl and Auburn have lost like 4 games in the last 4 years. Something insane. I remember them showing the stat before they ended up actually losing to Kentucky, which was funny. But that is not the most hostile environment in the SEC. The players themselves have dictated why they win there because they've had the best players and Cal's one of the best coaches. But when you look at other great venues in college basketball, when you think about Cameron Indoor, or you think about the Dean Dome, or some of these other, Allen Fieldhouse, those are the ones you want to go to Rupp Arena to see a great team and see the highlights and see the legends that have played. But if you're talking about a pure intimidation factor from the fan standpoint, it's not the best in the SEC. Maybe top 20. Maybe top 25, but it's not number 1 in the conference. It's not close.
We're going to get a lot of hate from some Kentucky fans in our videos. We've been getting all the Kentucky love the last few days with our shows. We're going to get some hate here. Last thing for you, Tye, as we kind of wrap up here. So the reports are Cal is going to be making in the arena of $8 million a year. That's about expected. He was making 8.5, at Kentucky. So you got to keep him somewhere close to the same salary. Now that is almost double what Muss was making. So it's a lot of money. But what do you make of the report that he's going to get anywhere from $5 to $7 million in NIL? And how does that even work? The school can't pay NIL, right? You still have to go through all the tunnels of how to navigate NIL. But is that kind of what you're hearing too?
I think that's more John Tyson, and maybe there's some boosters that either want to remain nameless or have contributed to the university. And if that report is anywhere close to being true, it's one of the best, if not the best, in college basketball. It's one thing to get that amount of money in football, which is still, I would say, not not even close to being the top dog in the sport. But basketball wise, you can build a fat roster with that type of cash. And maybe that was a signal out to every college basketball young man that has look at Fayetteville all of a sudden because Cal's there. Because, Musselman, you mentioned earlier, did a tremendous job recruiting. Guys like Anthony Black, Jordan Walsh, Nick Smith Jr., guys out of the portal like Ricky Council. He really did a good job. And I don't want to – this isn't a must show for me because I'm really appreciative of the time that him and Danielle and his family spent in Fayetteville. I'm not like one of those Arkansas fans that just want to rips on him after he leaves. But, Cal just has, as I said earlier, more cachet. And he's going to be able to, again, gain the attention of every young man, or at least gain the little bit of like a perspective from every young man in the country that's looking at where he wants to either transfer to or maybe kind of a high school for. So he's got and he's got the money to do it, as he probably did in Lexington, which we know in today's climate, it's a huge part of this, Gordy.
Yeah, and one thing I've heard from most Kentucky fans, they agree, is you're getting a Calipari that will be rejuvenated, hungry, and ready to come in and hit the ground running. Look, he's already 65. He doesn't need a 5-year rebuild at Arkansas to get this thing going. He's got to hit the ground running immediately, and it's going to be fascinating to see. And again, we should hear something here, if it hasn't already, when you're watching this video, that the official news will come out, times of a press conference and all that. But hey, the pictures are already up at Bud Walton Arena, so this thing is happening, and it's going to be exciting. Thanks so much for joining us, Tye. Always good to catch up with you, man. Great insight as always, and we'll get you back on again and talk some Hog football. Not as many positives with that one, but hey, who knows? We'll see.
Chris, appreciate it, brother. We'll see you in a few months at SEC Media Days in Dallas. New venue, new karaoke bar we got to figure out.
Absolutely. We'll make it happen. He's Tye Richardson there again. Hit That Line is where you can find him, and he does a great job over there. Hey, thank you guys for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Shout out to our everydayers. Come on back tomorrow on the show. Check us out. For your second listen, go check out Locked On Sports Today on YouTube. It's a 24/7 streaming channel covering all the top stories of the day. Go subscribe again to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. And you can find that on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. That's going to do it for me, Chris Gordy. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow right here on Locked On SEC.